everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking some incredibly complex, fast-moving source material. So if you're looking for a clear, no-nonsense breakdown of the facts on the ground, you are in the exact right place as we dive straight into the latest geopolitical shifts in the Middle East. Just look at that number, 68. We are officially on day 68 of the U.S.-Israel war with Iran. And let me tell you, right now, a massive ultimatum is sitting squarely on the table. The dynamics have shifted so dramatically over the last few days that what started out as a blunt military objective is basically turning into a frantic diplomatic puzzle. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, we'll look at the new deal on the table. Then, we'll break down the military standoff going on in the Strait of Hormuz. After that, we're going to zoom out to the global economic impact because, yes, this is absolutely affecting your wallet. Then, we'll peek behind closed diplomatic doors and finally wrap up by asking, are we just kicking the can down the road? Let's start right at the top with part one, a deal on the table. So breaking news, Iranian officials are actively reviewing a brand new U.S. proposal to end the war and reopen the critical Strait of Hormuz. But man, the public rhetoric, it's anything but peaceful. Just look at the sheer force of the messaging coming from President Trump. He's issued a really stark ultimatum to Tehran, basically saying accept the deal and reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face intense renewed U.S. bombing. He's making it crystal clear he believes Iran can be coerced into this agreement, one way or another. Now, if we look at the other side, Iranian spokespeople are talking just as tough. They've publicly warned of a harsh and regret-inducing response. They are dismissing the American proposal as a total wish list rather than reality, and even claim they have their finger on the trigger. So on the surface, the rhetoric from both sides is incredibly aggressive. And that creates this wild contrast. Publicly, it's all fire and fury, threats of intense strikes and regret-inducing responses. But privately, behind closed doors, analysts and correspondents are telling us that neither side actually wants a return to all-out war. Both Washington and Tehran know that going back to the battlefield just doesn't serve their ultimate interests right now. So what happens when that private reality meets the actual military situation on the ground? That brings us to part two, standoff in the street. You know, the Strait of Hormuz is this massive bottleneck for global shipping, and it's basically ground zero for this military friction. Talk about the fog of war. On one day, we saw completely dueling military narratives. Iran claimed they hit a U.S. warship with 2 missiles, while the U.S. claimed it attacked 7 Iranian fast boats. Both sides are completely rejecting the other's claims. When information is contested like this, finding the actual truth is literally like finding a needle in a haystack. To really wrap our heads around how fast this is moving, let's walk through this chaotic 72-hour window. Sunday, President Trump announces Project Freedom to help seafarers stuck in the Gulf. Monday, as we just saw, the U.S. and Iran trade those conflicting attack claims. Then, Tuesday morning, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirms 2 commercial ships actually passed through, saying the lane is clear. Secretary of State Marco Rubio even tells reporters the offensive achieved its objectives. But then, out of nowhere on Tuesday afternoon, President Trump catches everyone off guard and pauses the initiative. It's just a dizzying sequence of events. Okay, let's step back from the military maneuvers for a second and look at part 3, the global economic impact. Because look, this standoff isn't just happening in a vacuum thousands of miles away. It's sending shockwaves through the global economy that directly impact everyday life. For instance, global oil prices actually dipped briefly below $100 a barrel on rumors of a deal. But don't let that slight drop fool you. We are still talking about a price point that's 40% higher than pre-war levels. The market is incredibly cautious, and every single twist in the Strait of Hormuz causes ripples everywhere else. And check out this staggering statistic, 13,000. That's how many global flights have been canceled in the month of May alone because of this conflict. To put that in perspective, that is roughly 2 million passenger seats just taken right out of the sky. Let's break down that fallout. You've got major players like Turkish, Emirates, and Lufthansa canceling routes, which makes up about 1% of all global flights. Why? Because jet fuel costs have absolutely doubled, and fuel is more than a quarter of an airline's entire operating cost. The result? Consumer fares have hiked up to 50% higher than they were last year. And while governments like the UK are currently telling citizens to keep their travel plans, the horizon for summer travel is, honestly, incredibly unclear.
With stakes that high, it's time for Section 4, behind closed diplomatic doors.
This is where the really frantic mediation is happening, way out of the public eye. To understand the gravity here, you actually have to look all the way back to 1979. Over the past month, during the first round of talks brokered by Pakistan, we saw the most senior delegations from the U.S. and Iran meet in person since 1979. That is huge. And now, the diplomatic web is expanding. This week, the Iranian foreign minister is visiting Beijing. Next week, President Trump has a massive meeting with China's President Xi in Beijing. The major global players are all getting involved. And out of all these back-channel talks, there's a one-page memorandum circulating right now. Think of it as a blueprint. It basically aims to do 4 things: gradually pause hostilities, open the Straits of Hormuz, set the stage for future nuclear talks, and, crucially, avoid highly technical details for now. It's essentially a roadmap to just de-escalate the immediate crisis.
Which brings us to our final perspective today, Part 5, kicking the can down the road.
So, what does this proposed deal actually mean for the original goals of the conflict? Well, kicking the can down the road means delaying a difficult problem rather than dealing with it head-on. Many experts in Washington are warning that this memorandum might just be a deal to continue talking. By avoiding the technical stuff, specifically Iran's uranium stocks, they're basically delaying the hardest part of the negotiation. Remember, under the Obama administration, it took 20 solid months of negotiating just to iron out those specific nuclear details. And honestly, this is where the entire narrative of the entire last 68 days really comes to a head. Notice the stark pivot. The original goal of the war was to definitively remove all prospect of Iran getting a nuclear weapon through blunt military force. But look at the reality of the current deal. The focus has entirely shifted to using diplomacy to unblock a shipping lane, a lane that wasn't even the issue when this conflict started.
Which leaves us with this final burning question. Will a war launched over nuclear weapons actually end in a deal about shipping lanes? It just goes to show how wildly unpredictable global conflicts can be once the